What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Salute to everyone tuning in. Now, this situation right here is getting a lot of attention because Ayesha Curry and Steph Curry are making moves that people are calling straight up damage control. They recently popped up on Michelle Obama and her brother's podcast, and a lot of folks believe this wasn't just a casual interview. It felt strategic. The focus, cleaning up the public image after everything Ayesha said in past interviews that had people side-eyeing their marriage. And let's be clear, this wasn't something kept behind closed doors. This all played out publicly, and the internet definitely didn't forget. Now, suddenly, Ayesha seems to be walking things back. The tone is different, the energy is softer, and it almost feels like she's trying to correct the narrative. Some people are even saying it sounds like an apology without directly saying the words. And that has people asking, did reality finally hit? What stands out is that she's not pointing fingers this time. There's no blaming others, no defensive energy, just a calmer, more reflective approach. And yeah, that might look like accountability on the surface, but not everyone is buying it. Because let's be honest, some people think this is all calculated, a carefully timed shift to fix how things look publicly rather than what's really going on behind the scenes. And when you've seen similar moves from other celebrities before, it's hard not to question it. This whole situation is raising eyebrows, and people are watching closely to see what comes next. I don't know, something about this whole situation just feels off. It really does look like damage control, and the timing makes people question everything. Why now? And why are both of them suddenly doing interviews together? Steph is in the middle of his career. Shouldn't his focus be locked in on basketball instead of sitting down for press runs like this? At this point, they might be one of the most interviewed couples out there. They've done joint appearances, had their own show, and Ayesha especially has stayed in the spotlight consistently. And even now, while she's sounding more reflective and calm, some people still feel like the attention somehow circles back to her. Because when you really listen to what she's saying, it comes across like she's trying to clean things up after realizing how her past comments landed. She's addressing statements about attraction, even mentioning how she once said he wasn't her type. And that's the kind of thing people don't just forget. Those words stick, especially when they're said publicly. And let's be real, comments like that can hit hard in a relationship. It's not a stretch to think they've had private conversations about it. That could explain why they're now appearing together, presenting a more united front, and why she seems to be walking certain things back. Not because of the internet necessarily, but because it may have affected things at home. Steph has responded to critics before, but in this case, a lot of the public reaction came directly from what was already put out there. People are reacting to her own words, and it feels like Ayesha understands that now, which is why this whole interview comes off like an attempt to reset the narrative. But the big question is, how long does this kind of damage control last before people stop questioning it? That's what makes this so interesting. Now let's get into this People.com article and see exactly what was said. Ayesha Curry went ahead and addressed those past comments about Steph not being her type during Michelle Obama's podcast, which dropped March 25th. And now she's calling those remarks very disrespectful. Oh, now they're disrespectful. Because let's not forget, when those clips first went viral, plenty of people were already saying the exact same thing. Folks were calling it out in real time, pointing out how those comments didn't sit right at all. And now, suddenly, it's being acknowledged. That's why some people are giving major side-eye to the timing of this realization. She also tried to explain it by saying she had a stereotypical view of what jocks were like back in high school. But here's the thing. If you actually look at Steph Curry, he never really fit that typical image anyway. He didn't come off like the loud, overly flashy athlete type. He seemed more low-key, more focused, just a regular guy who happened to be really good at basketball. It's not like he gave off that all I care about is sports energy either. From everything people have seen, he carried himself differently, even back then. And Ayesha herself admitted she didn't even expect his basketball career to take off like it did. She thought he'd end up coaching while she would be in the spotlight building a career in entertainment. So when you connect all of that, it makes her original comments stand out even more. because it shows she may have underestimated him early on, and now, years later, she's revisiting those statements with a completely different perspective. And that shift is exactly why people are locked in on this whole situation right now. Ayesha also admitted she kind of sold herself short back then, thinking Steph wouldn't even be interested in dating her. She described herself as a theater kid, a theater nerd, and made it seem like she didn't see herself in that lane when it came to someone like him.
Now she's trying to clear everything up. She and Steph sat down together on Michelle Obama's IMO podcast, released March 25th, and this whole moment felt very intentional. Because let's be honest, Steph being there says a lot. For both of them to address this publicly, it suggests those old comments actually hit a nerve. If it didn't matter, this wouldn't even be happening. That's what stands out the most. She's now saying her words were misunderstood and taken out of context, trying to reframe the narrative in a softer way. And while that might sound reasonable, people are still questioning why it took this long to explain it like this. At one point, she even addressed Steph directly, saying it wasn't that he didn't have game. She explained that she was only 14 at the time and wasn't allowed to talk to boys because of strict rules at home. And sure, strict parenting is real, it happens all the time, but some people aren't fully convinced that this explains everything. Because let's keep it real, at that age, nobody's expecting anything serious anyway. So for many listeners, that explanation feels a little shaky. It raises more questions than answers, especially when you pair it with everything she said before. And then it circles back to the main question people keep asking. Did she actually find him attractive back then or not? Because the way this is being explained now feels very different from how it sounded before. And that contrast is exactly why this conversation keeps getting more intense every time it comes up. She said absolutely when asked if she found Steph attractive, and she admitted again that her past comments were disrespectful and rude. But here's the thing, those were her words. Nobody put that in her mouth, nobody pressured her to say it. She said it because that's how she felt at the time. And now people are looking at her like, wait, so what changed? Some believe she was trying to sound relatable, maybe connecting with other women who had similar thoughts back then. But now that she's revisiting it, it's coming off very different. Because once something like that is said publicly, it sticks, and walking it back later is always going to raise questions. Then she went into this whole explanation about having a no athlete rule as a teenager. She said it came from a school assignment where students had to list qualities they wanted in a future partner. According to her, she had certain ideas about athletes based on stereotypes she saw in movies and school culture. That was her reasoning. But let's be real for a second. That part has people raising eyebrows too. Because most people remember how things went in school. Athletes usually got a lot of attention. Not everyone was into that, sure, but saying a flat-out no athletes rule in all caps? That sounds extreme, and people aren't fully buying it without questioning it a little. She explained that she saw herself as a theater kid, someone focused on a different path, and felt like she was protecting her peace at the time. And apparently she took it seriously. She even wrote that list in capital letters. Her parents later found that list years afterward in storage, which just added another layer to the story. Still, the way this is being explained now, compared to how everything sounded before, feels like a big shift. And that's why people keep analyzing every detail, trying to figure out what's genuine and what might be a little too polished this time around. She said her parents even laughed when they found that old list, like, look at this. And that's when she doubled down and tried to clarify something else that people keep bringing up. According to her, the real reason she said Steph wasn't her type wasn't what people thought. It was actually rooted in her own insecurity. Now that right there had people pausing like, wait, what? Insecurity how? That's the part that really caught attention. Because the way this is all being unpacked, it doesn't even feel like a regular interview anymore. It feels like a full-on therapy session happening in public. And that's what makes it a little uncomfortable for some viewers, because these sound like the kind of things you usually work through privately, not break down piece by piece on a podcast for everybody to analyze. But here it is, all out in the open. She explained that people misunderstood her original statement. It wasn't that she didn't see Steph as her type, she believed she wasn't his type. She described him as Mr. Cool, and basically said she counted herself out before anything could even happen. In her mind, there was no way he would be interested, so she assumed they were just friends. And that right there is where the conversation gets real, because a lot of people are listening to that explanation and trying to decide if it lines up with everything she said before. She claims she sold herself short, doubted herself, and misread the situation completely. But let's talk about it, because in most cases, when a guy is genuinely interested, he's gonna make it known one way or another. Maybe not always direct, but there will be signs, hints, something you can pick up on. It usually doesn't stay in that confusing gray area for long. So now people are asking, was this really insecurity back then, or is this a new way of reframing the story now? That's the question that's got everybody debating, and it's exactly why this whole situation keeps getting more intense every time it comes up. Let's be honest, if you're in the friend zone, you usually know that. There's not much confusion there. But according to Steph, Ayesha actually left the door open for him back when they were younger, giving him the chance to step up and pursue her. And Ayesha even admitted she's glad things didn't go the friend zone route. But listening to all this now, people can't help but notice how different the energy feels. This is a complete 180 compared to how she was talking in that earlier podcast interview. Back then, the tone came off way more confident, almost like it was all centered around her perspective. Very me energy. And now it's softer, more reflective, and way more careful. That shift is exactly why people are calling this out, because it feels like she realized how those past comments landed, especially with Steph. A lot of folks believe he wasn't happy about it at all, and once she saw the reaction and how things were going, she had to address it directly and try to clear things up. She even brought up how things actually started between them, remembering how Steph would come over to her house for weeks just to hang out and play video games with her brothers. That detail paints a completely different picture of how interested he really was back then. And that's why this whole situation feels so calculated to some viewers. Like, let's get in front of this, let's fix how this looks, and let's reset the narrative before it goes any further. And honestly, they have every right to speak on their relationship, but people are still going to question the timing and the delivery. At the end of the day, this interview came off like a very public moment of reflection, maybe even a little damage control after everything that had already been said. And whether people accept it or not, one thing is clear. This situation definitely got people talking, and they're still watching every move closely. Now here's where the conversation really starts heating up. Some people are saying this isn't just insecurity like she's claiming. They believe it comes off more like frustration or unmet expectations. Because when you go back to what she said before, she talked about wanting more attention, more recognition, and feeling a certain way seeing Steph receive so much praise while she didn't get the same energy. And that's what has people talking, because she also mentioned how she once thought he'd end up coaching, while she would be the one in the spotlight as the entertainer. But life flipped that completely. Steph became a global superstar, and that dynamic didn't play out the way she expected at all. Now add time into the mix, and people start looking at the bigger picture. They're both getting older, entering a new phase of life, and with that can come reflection, pressure, and big questions about identity and fulfillment. That's normal. But when those thoughts get shared publicly, especially in pieces over time, it creates a narrative that people are going to analyze from every angle. Some observers even point to other public breakups and life changes they've seen, using those as examples to question where this could be headed. Not saying that's what will happen here, but it shows how quickly people start connecting dots when they see interviews like this pop up out of nowhere. And that's the key point, because a lot of folks are asking, why do this now? Why revisit all of this publicly if everything was already understood behind the scenes? The fact that she chose not to blame the public this time, even while saying things were misconstrued, also stands out. It adds to the idea that she's trying to shift how everything is being perceived moving forward. At the end of the day, this situation keeps evolving, and every new statement just adds another layer. And that's exactly why people can't stop watching to see what happens next. I don't really get how people are supposed to be misconstruing not just one interview, but multiple. Each one seemed to add more to the conversation, and honestly, each one hit a little harder than the last. That's why people aren't letting it go, because it didn't just happen once, it kept happening. And here's another angle people are starting to look at. Some feel like when Ayesha's away from Steph, she shows a different side of herself. But when she's around him publicly, it's like she shifts into a more controlled version, almost like she's playing a role. And yeah, she even described herself as a theater nerd back in the day. So people are connecting that idea to how she presents herself now. So when you see her in this latest interview being more careful, more reflective, and seemingly taking accountability, it raises questions. Is this the real version, or is this another adjustment to how things are being perceived? Because to some viewers, it feels like this moment is less about clearing things up and more about correcting the public image. And that's why people are saying this whole situation is proving their earlier criticisms. Not necessarily in a harsh way, but in a "we saw this coming" type of way. Both of them seem aware of how those past interviews came across, and this feels like an attempt to reset things before it goes any further. At the same time, people are watching closely because public relationships always come with pressure, no matter how strong things look on the outside. Once the spotlight gets involved, every detail gets picked apart. And when interviews like these start stacking up, it only adds more attention and more speculation about what's really going on behind the scenes. It's getting to the point where people are starting to notice a pattern. When it comes to high-profile couples like this, especially involving athletes, things can change fast once the career slows down or retirement comes into the picture. And a lot of folks believe that's when the real test begins, when the spotlight shifts and priorities start changing. And let's be real, when situations like this start building up publicly, people always wonder who's going to be the one to walk away first if things go left. That question alone keeps the conversation going. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think is really going on here? Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so more people can join the discussion. And don't forget to follow me on all my social media platforms. I'll catch you in the next one.